All right, good morning. Today is Tuesday, the 18th of April. It is day 67, I believe, of our AWD1000 Web Development Technologies class. Today, I'm going to go over Murach's JavaScript chapters 15 and 16. I'm also going to go back and review the chapter 12 homework that we had a problem with yesterday and go over a couple of problems for chapter 13. Let's do that first, and then we'll jump in and do chapters 15 and 16. All right, tomorrow, as it says, we'll go over Murach's chapters 17 and 18, and we'll do some end of chapter problems, probably for like 14 and 15. And whatever we don't get done, tomorrow, we'll finish up on Thursday. All right. Friday will be a lab period. No taping will be done. And what I hope to do next week, I think I've mentioned this already, but I'm going to say it again. We'll see how it works out with it, doing what on what day. But what I want to do tomorrow, or what I want to do next week rather, are three different things. First, I want to give about an hour or so long preview of what the AWD 1100 C# programming class is for those of you who will be in the class this summer. Then I want to give you, even though I'm not teaching it, a little bit of a preview of the AWD 1111 class some of you will be teaching, or taking rather, with Mr. Gudmested this summer. Finally, and going along with that last class, we are to do a project in something called React. Now I'm going to give you all the code, and I'd like you to follow along, but you won't have to turn anything in for that. All right. Your last set of assignments, and that'll be the work from chapters 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. That'll be the written tests, the labs, and the homework problems that we do in class. They'll be due by midnight, Sunday, 4:30. And again, that'll be the last assignment. There will not be any more hands-on tests in this class. Okay, so before we go in and actually do 14 and 15, let's take a look at a couple of these. This is the one that we did yesterday, that we did pretty much with no problem. All right, and that was to develop this change calculator. All right, and we will not go over that anymore. We got it to work. All right, I'm skipping the calendar app. I'm skipping the password generator. And in a little bit, not right now, but in a little bit, we'll look at 13.1. Use a switch statement to validate a date. So we'll go over that in just a couple minutes. Now, what we worked on yesterday and had some problems with was this short 12.1, improve the validation of the countdown application. So we're going to look at that right now. All right, literally, we're going to look at that right now. All right, and if there are questions, I'm taking for granted that you are going to get back to me and you're going to ask. Okay. All right. So we are to enter, you have to enter something in there for the event name. You have to enter something in there for the event date. In addition, the date should be formatted correctly, meaning there should be a month that's between 1 and 12, a slash, a day that's between 1 and 31, or 1 and 30, or 1 and 29, or 1 and 28, and then a year. The program will actually work if you put stuff that's already passed. So for instance, if I ran the program and wanted to put in there 12/25/2000, Christmas Day 2000, I could find out how many days ago that was. All right. So as it says, we were told yesterday to start the application, put in an invalid date, and note the error message. Does not accurately describe the error. So we were going to, go in there and make changes in here, and we'll take a look at all of that stuff right now. When we get done with this problem, we are going to jump right into 13.2, which is to go and add some exception handling to this same countdown application. All right, so let's just start with the one that we've been working on. Okay, I've got it up here. And this is what we were working on yesterday. And I'm going to make some changes kind of in front of you so you can see what I'm doing. All right. Now, these constants that are here, this event name, the event date, and the message label, you should all understand this, that if I bring this up right here, all right, let me move this. I'm going to actually make this smaller. I know it's a little hard to see, but all right. But what you've got here, that event name is what goes in here. That event date is what goes in here. That message label is what goes in here in red. So ideally, there'll be nothing in this because we won't have made any kind of mistakes. Okay. So as we get started, and I may change a few things around. So let's see, we want to make sure that the user has entered both a task and an event date. So we want to make sure there is something in each one of those things right there. And if there is not, we want to give them a message. So if the length on either one of those was 0, meaning there's nothing in there, we want to say, please enter both a name and a date. Nothing new there. And we'll return because there's nothing else literally to do. All right. So that's first thing. Then the next thing that we want to do is we want to come in and make sure that the date string has 2 slashes, exactly 2. All right. So we're doing a split based on that slash. So if we were to put in something that didn't have any slashes, there'd be no split. And something with 1 slash, there'd be 2 things in there. The stuff on the left of the slash and the stuff on the right. So you can see we want to format it like a quote real date. I'm going to change this a little bit here just so you can see everything. All right. So we're saying there again, if we don't have 3 parts to our label, okay, then we please enter date in month, day, year format. And here I'm going to say, please enter. I'm going to make this capital. So you can see that, oops, so far it is working. So let me do a file save all here. Let me go back to here and let's see if we can check with what we've done so far. So if there is nothing in here, notice that both, that's the word I put in caps. So please enter both a name and a date. So that's good. If I do come in here, let's just say Christmas. But I'm going to do this wrong on purpose. I'm going to say 12/25, 2023. This is making a mistake on purpose. And now it says, please enter date in this format. All right. So you can see that, like I said, right now, it appears as though what we've done so far is working. That's good. That's a good start. All right. So let's go on. So we've now done this. We made sure that, whoops, we made sure there was something in there and we made sure that the date had 2 slashes in it. All right. Then the next thing we want to do is we want to come in here and we want to make sure, all right, that there's 4 digits in there for the year. And let's see if that is working right now. So I'm going to put in, again, I'll put in here Christmas. And I'll put in 12/25, and I'll put in 2. These enter 4 digits for the year. If I put in a 0, it should do the same thing. A 2, it should do the same thing. And a 3, boom, it all appears to work. Well, that's good. All right. And again, if I come back again and add an extra one, all right, well, it actually is attempting to find something in the year 20,235. But if I go back to this, I get an error again. So that's working. So right now, I've got a test that's making sure that you entered both an event name and an event date, and that's working. Then we've got another one that's making sure we've got 2 slashes in the date and only 2 slashes, and that's working. Then we're making sure that we went in and we went in and we entered 4 digits for the year, and that's working. Okay, so right now, at least, all of that stuff is working. All right. So let's go back down here and go back and take a look at our code again. All right. So the next thing to do is to check, and for whatever reason, I'm gonna check and change this around. I looked at the way the author did it. I did. And he did this one first. I'm not sure why. All right, but I'm going to put it first anyway. So this else is now out of here, and this becomes an else. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check for months that have 30 days in them. All right, what is that? Well, an old teacher that I had back in high school would always say you can use the knuckle test. And if you look at, you've got 4 knuckles if you don't include your thumb knuckle. And basically, I don't even know, it's not worth telling you, but the point is April, June, September, and November each have 30 days in them. So each one of these months has 30 days. All right. So if the month is one of these, 4, 9, 6, or 11, then we want to check for a range in here. Okay. So in other words, then if I'm going to run this in just a moment, and I'm going to put in 0 for a day, and it should say days and months must be 30. Then I'm going to run it again, and I'm going to put in a 31, and I should get the same message. Well, let's go in between them, and we'll use the month 11, okay? And I'll put in here 11-0, and it shouldn't work. Then I'll put in 11-1, and it should work. Then I'll put in 11-31, and it shouldn't work. Then I'll put in 11-30, and it should work. When I say shouldn't work, I should be getting those messages right there. All right. Now, we could be a little bit more descriptive in here. And I'm going to try some. We'll see if this works. So rather than saying days and months, we'll say days in. Yeah, it'll look funky for just a minute. Give me a second. All right. So I'd like it to say, for example, like days in November must be 1 to 30. Let's see if I did it correctly or incorrectly. So file, save all. Let's go back into here and let's run it again. All right. And again, we'll put in Thanksgiving. Now I'm purposely going to put this in incorrectly. 11-0-2023. Now I got an error. Okay, it didn't like something that I did. Why I always do that. Now it's giving me a user message, but it's not giving me any errors. Okay, now it doesn't like something that I've done in here. Let's see if we can figure out what it was. So days in, well, that's month, so that should be okay. Must be 1 to 30. Let's just forget about that. Let's just say days must be 1 to 30, something like that. All right, so let's see now if this one works. All right, I'll save all. I don't know if that was the error, if I had some kind of other error when I move stuff around, but we'll see. So let's just put in some junk here, and I'm going to put in 11-22-2023. And does that work? It does. There's 218 days until then. Okay, good. So let's try something. So again, we'll use Thanksgiving, and we're going to put in something illegal. So I'm going to put an 11-0 there. All right, I'm not getting my error message. So something is hinky with that. And I'm not getting any errors. So let's see, let's try to debug this. So if the day is less than 1, which it was, I put in a 0, or the day is greater than 30, we didn't do that yet, that label text should have said days must be 1 to 30. All right, and it should have returned. Okay, now for whatever reason, that didn't work. That might be because when I move stuff around here, I might have goofed it up. It's totally possible. All right. So let's just for now, let's take all of this code that's right here, that's doing all the checks for everything else in our date, and let's comment it out. So the only thing that we're checking right now is this. So file, save all. Hopefully this will now work, but we'll see. So again, just some junk. Let's try 11/0/2023. Still not getting any message. Why would that be? Because this code I've got in here is correct. At least I think it is. If the month is equal to 4, or the month is equal to 6, or the month is equal to 9, or the month is equal to 11, that looks like it's a valid check. All right. Let's put an alert in here. And we'll say month equals, and we'll say plus month. Let's see if that's getting hit. All right, are we getting into that code that's right there? Sometimes this is the best way to debug. So again, I'll put in valid stuff. So 11, Thanksgiving. And we'll just put, I don't know what it is, but let's put 11/24/2023. All right, 220 days, but notice it's not giving me my alert. So something is goofy in there. All right. What do I mean? Well, it's on me because it is that month, but it isn't doing this. It isn't hitting that. So the month did look, everything looked like it was okay, but it's not giving me this. Okay, I'm going to grab this. Try to grab it. And I'm going to put it down later on in the program on here. All right, and that's capitalizing, that's calculating days, that's doing all the other goodies. All right, so let's come in here, and I'm going to come right down here. I'm going to put that alert in. I'll say after validating. All right, I want to see if that's going to get hit in there. All right, after validating month equal 11. So that is working. All right, 200, okay, so all of that is working. But for the life of me, and maybe I'm missing something very fundamental here, I don't know. But I'm going and looking in here, and that is okay now. We know that. All right. But the other stuff was not getting hit. Well, that's not good, because what we want to come in here and check is this. And I'm not getting that message that says days must be between those. It's not doing anything. And I even went back and looked at the authors just so I saw something. And I had the date parts as 0. The month is date part 0. The date is date parts 1, exactly like the author did. We're not using this. I can get rid of that. I checked for the months. Now the author used a double equal sign there, but that shouldn't matter. Technically, it should be a triple equal sign for what I had told you before. And then the author came in there just as I did and said, if the day is less than 1 or the day is greater than 30, set the message label text to days must be 1 to 30 and return. So I'm doing it virtually the same way that the author had done it. So I'm going to come in here and do a file, save all, come back in here and try to run this again. And again, we'll just put in some garbage here, and I'm going to put in 11/31/2023. Days must be 1 to 30. Well, that's good. That part is working then. How about if I come in there and put in a days 0? Well, let's put in a valid date and then try it again. All right, so let's put a 0 in here. All right, that's working. Okay, so it appears as though we've got that working. So in other words, we now have working, I don't know why an equal versus a triple equal would matter, but it appears as though it could. So let's go in and we'll do the same thing in here. And now I'm going to make my check for everything except February. All right, so now, and again, I'll go back. I don't know why the double versus triple equal sign would matter, but if it does, I want this thing to work so you can see it in action. All right. So now I'm going to check days with 31 or months with 31 days in them, which is January, March, May, July, August, October, and December. So if one of those has less than 1 or greater than 31, now we should get a different message. Days and month must be 1 to 31. Okay, so let's do a file save all on here and let's run it again. Always good when you do this to go back and make sure what you put in there to begin with works. So that's working. If we may change that to a 31, we should get our error message. We do. I'm going to change it back again to 30 and it works. I'm going to change that back to a 0 and we get our error message. So all of that is now working. All right, I'm only checking 1 month out of these. All right, let's try January. And my wife's birthday is in January. All right, put that in there. And it actually is 24. So I'm going to try that. All right, there are 281 days till her birthday. Let's do something illegal. So let's put a 32 in here. Days and month must be 1 to 31. That's good. Let's change it to a 2. Let's change it to 20. And that works. Let's change it to a 0. And we get our error message. So right now, it appears as though our checks are working. All right. They're working for every month that has 30 days in it, those 4 months, every month that has 31 days in it, those 7 months. So what's left to do on here is the goofiness that is February. All right. So I'm going to undo that. There we go. And this will be something else. So I'm just, for now, at least I'm going to comment that out. All right. So this is February. Now, there is more to the check than this. And I actually went out. All right. I actually went out and of course, I probably have removed it now, but I went online and I said, is there a JavaScript leap year function? And probably it came back. I think it said you can write your own. So is leap year. Well, that's this moment stuff. We could do that. All right. But again, that's much more advanced. It's interesting. All right. So check if year is a leap year. I'm going to grab what they've got here and I'm going to just modify it a little bit. Because if the year is divisible by 4, but the year is not divisible by 100, all right? So it's divisible by 4, but it's not, and the thing is not divisible by 100, or if it's divisible by 400. There's just goofy rules as far as leap year goes. So let me copy this. I'm going to change the check in here. So we're not just checking for this. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to make this, I'm going to put the whole thing in here. And to make sure you can read it, I'm going to put this over 3 lines. So this is part of a complex check. What I mean is all of this stuff that you see here, this is one check. All right. Now, what that means is, as an example, the year 2500 will not be a leap year because even though it may be divisible by 4, I don't know if it will be or not, but I don't care. It will not be divisible. All right. There's just weird checks. Let's just put it that way. So I've got this now. So let's try this. This is our leap year check. So I'm going to see here, check for February. And the first thing we're going to do is leap year check. All right. And then this will make this non-leap year check. And the difference is if it's a leap year, there's 29 days in the month. If it's not a leap year, there's 28 days in the month. So let's see if I broke anything. Hopefully didn't. All right, so we've got that. Again, we'll put in Valentine's Day. And that'll be 2, 14, 20, 24. So if you were wondering, there are 302 days left until Valentine's Day. All right, well, let's see. 2024, next year should be a leap year. So 29, if it works, and it does. Now, if we change this from 2024 to 2025, which is not a leap year, all right, well, you notice what it did. It actually did it, but it didn't like my check. Right? It does not like my check that's in here. All right. What do I mean? Well, what I mean is it actually is figuring out that that's March 1st, even though I put down February 29th. All right. So either I'll have to go back and make that a simple check, or else I'll have to look at this check. Let's go back and just make this a real simple check like the author had, which is like this, because I want to see if we can get this to work. So if the year modulo 4 is equal to 0, then it is a leap year. So all right, so file, save all. Again, we'll just put some garbage in here, and I'm going to put in 2/29/2024, which is next year. That is a leap year. Let's change it to 2025. See, it is still doing that. Not sure why. See if we can figure it out. All right, let's make that an equal again. See if that does anything. So save all. And again, we'll just put in some junk here. So 20 or 2, I'm going to put in 29/2025. Days and month must be. So for whatever reason, in this case, we need the double equals and not the triple equals. So that didn't work. And if we make that 2024, which is a leap year, that does work. Go back and change it again. So a non-leap year, and we get our error message. Go and put in something that's less than 1. We again get our error message. All right. So if you're following along, and I hope you are, what I'm telling you is the thing that we did yesterday worked. So in other words, okay, we set constants based on text box values. That was those two. All right. We made sure that the user entered a task. We'll place say an event and an event date. All right. That worked fine with the triple equals. I don't know why. All right. Then we went and split the date based on the dash. If it didn't have three components, we said that you must put it in this format. We checked that and it worked. Then we went in and grabbed the year. And we said if for some reason, all right, if for some reason, when you're working with this, all right, if it was non-numeric, you said to enter 4 digits for the year. Then we went in and again, we had split this thing. We had split it based on the dash. So the numbers that come before the dash must be between 1 and 12. The numbers that come after the first dash must be either 31, 30, 29, or 28. So again, this right here, this was our check for these 4 months. If it was one of these 4 months, the day had to be between 1 and 30. If it was not, you gave that message and returned. Then we checked for these 7 months that have 31 days in them. And we said again, if the day was less than 1 or greater than 31, we gave that message. Then we came in and did the weird thing with the leap year. So if the month was 2, we checked, and if the year was evenly divisible by 4, then it was a leap year, so you can go from 1 day to 29 days. Otherwise, it was not a leap year, so you could go between 1 and 28 days. The only thing that's left in here is this, and that's if we put an invalid value in for our months. That was already in there, I believe. So if I come in here and put in all right, must enter, but whoops. All right, must enter 4 digits for the year. 1, must enter 4 digits. 2, 3, 4 works. Okay. All right, so everything appears to be working in here now. Now, the rest of the code that's in here is doing a lot. So as it's a date object, and then check for validity. All right. So that's attempting to take whatever we put in there and check for that. Capitalize each word of the event name. That's not that big a thing. They're working with some string constants there. Then they're calculating the number of days in here. 24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute, 1,000 milliseconds in a second. That's how they're doing that. And then they are displaying the message right here. That's all I'm going to do with this one. All right, I'm already going a little longer than I had hoped to. So that's the first one that we're going to look at. Then next, we're going to come in and we're going to look at how we can take this, all right, and make some changes to it. So let's do this. I'm going to grab this countdown. In fact, let me do this file. I don't know where this one I'm saved this as. So all right, that's fine. So we have now done this one, countdown date validator, and this one, develop change calculator. We've now done that one. So next I'd like to do this one, add exception handling to this countdown. And then we'll go back and look at 13.1, use a switch statement to validate the date, and then I will lecture on 15 and 16. All right, so let's see, that is, I think that is the short, that is chapter 13, and this is the countdown. So I will open this one up in code. This is what you were given by the author right here. All right. So some of this I'm going to have to probably either add to or whatever, but here is the interface. And then here is the JavaScript file. So we've got our use strict, our calculate days. All right, I'm looking in here. This is all stuff that we'd already had. This should be stuff that we were given, I believe. All right. Close that. And this right here, this is the same stuff we did before. All right. This is the same stuff we did before. So is this. So is this. So is that. All right. Now, what's different in here is the way that we're doing some of these calculations. All right. We've got to calculate days. That's still in here to do for what we did before. All right. But we're supposed to come in here and we're supposed to do some, for lack of better words, kind of event handling. And that'd be down here. Now look what's in here. We've got all this stuff that says, we've got this calculate days thing. That looks fine. Okay. Now, with this calculate days function that's in here, we've got const date equal new date. Guess what? It might not be a valid date. Remember, we can put garbage in there. All right. I don't know what would happen right now. I don't know how this is set up. So let's look. And let's put some garbage in here and some garbage in here. And we just get that. Okay. But we're going to come in and start making some changes. So you've got this const calculate date. So writing this, but instead of this, we want to say if date instance of date. All right. So basically in English, what that's saying is if we had a valid date, if what we put in there is valid. All right. Now I'm going to move this over. Now we're saying today equals a new date. Do the get time, do all the other good stuff. All right, I'm leaving everything else in there. However, if it wasn't a good date, all right, so I'm going to say an else in here. I'm going to throw a new reference error. And what I'm going to say in here is this function requires a date. Like that. All right, we'll handle that a little bit later. Okay, so we've got all that done. Then we've got our document ready. Okay, and that's the same stuff we did before. And again, then we're making sure there's something entered in here. That isn't new. Then we're making sure it has 2 slashes. That isn't new. All right, then we're making sure it's a 4-digit year. That isn't new. Then we're trying to convert this date into a date object. That isn't new. Then we're doing our capitalization and all that other good stuff. That isn't new. All right. Now, in here, this calculate days, all this stuff that's in here, we want to put this into a try block. Remember, we talked about this yesterday, that when you are coming in, and you are attempting to do some code that could fail If you're using exception handling, then you put the stuff in a try-catch block. So let days to date, etc. Let message equal good, date equals, okay, okay. So this here is all stuff that conceivably at some time it could fail. All right, so I'm going to put it in this, and now I'm going to catch. Oops, that isn't catching. And I want to catch an error. All right, and if I catch an error, I want to change this text so that it has, oops, the error dot name, and then a colon, and then the error message. Now you might think, well, this is exactly what you did before. I want to show you in just a second why it's not. So hopefully I'm done already, but let's run it. So remember this, error name and error message. So I'm just going to say hello. And what if we leave this blank? Please enter both a name and a date. Okay, 34:45, like that. Please enter the date in a month, day, year format. Well, same kind of thing we had before. 12. 25. That probably would actually work, but that's going to be thousands of days into the future. So 2024. Okay. So that is till Christmas Day. How about for this year? There you go. That all works. All right. So what kind of errors can we get in here? Well, one thing that we can do is we can put in something in the past. And it says it happened that many days ago. So it's been 114 days since Christmas of last year. All right. Now, if I put in, let's see, today is the 18th of April. So 30 days, 30 and 28 is 58, and 31 is 89, and 18. This should be somewhere around 107 days. And it is. So that works. All right. So let's see. I know if I leave this blank, I get an error that says you must fill it in. We already did that. So if the days is 0, how about if we use today? Hooray, today's date. All right. If it's something in the future, we already saw that. If it's something in the past, we already saw that. All right. So what we have essentially done in here. All right. Now, does it take this? Let's try this. 2, 29, 20, 24. That works. What if I put in 2025? All right. So it is working, but it's working the quote old way that we did it. It's seeing the correct date. All right. But it's not handling it correctly. So there'd be still a little bit more work that we'd have to do on this. And I'll tell you what, the only one I'm going to require you to do in here is I'm not going to require you to do 13.2, adding the exception handling. I will require that you do this. So these are going to be your homeworks, and I'll get these to you by the end of the week. So you will have to do the countdown validator and the develop change calculator from chapter 12. Nothing in here from chapter 13. Let's look at this. Use a switch statement to validate a date. So let's look at that one. Okay, that's this. So in this exercise, you'll improve upon the code that validates a date in the account profile application. When you're done, the application will correctly validate valid dates. Okay. So we'll bring that up and we'll see what changes we have to make in there. When we get this one finished, there's not real much code in here, but then we're going to jump in and do 15 and 16. Okay, so we're told, let's just look at all of our requirements that are in here. All right, so the first thing we're told is to open the application in the folder. So let's bring that up to begin with. So I'm going to do a file save all in here, and I'm going to close this, and close this, and close this. And this is one of the, I don't know why I don't know it, but this is an extra. For chapter 13, this is the, make sure I'm doing the right one. Yep. So this is the profile, right? Or the validating the date. So that is this, I guess it is the one called profile. So let's bring that one up in code. And let's go in there and let's run this. So if we run it right now and put nothing in there, you can see what we get. Please enter a valid email. All right. Please enter a phone number, please enter a zip code, and please enter a valid birth date. Well, right now, if I put in 11/31/2023, it takes that, even though there's only 30 days in the month. So if I do come in here and put in my email, right, my phone number, and then reads the dashes, it looks like, the zip code, and this, it says everything's cool, even though that's wrong. All right. So right now, that's what we have to fix in here. All right, enter an invalid value. I did, and say nothing happens. Change the date of birth to 13. All right, so change it to 13. So in other words, they want us to run it again and put in an invalid month. So I'll put in here, I'll get JP Scott at Rankin, put in all that stuff, put in the dashes. All right, but it will put in here 44/22/2023. 44, of course, would be an invalid month. So please enter a valid date. All right. What if we put in here 12, but we put in 202? It doesn't like that either. It wants 4 digits. How about if I put in 5 digits? Doesn't like that either. So it wants exactly 4 digits. All right. I just want to make sure you have an understanding of exactly what it is it at least looks like we're attempting to do here. All right. So in the JavaScript file, note the isDate and the ready event handler that contains the validation code. In the isDate function, remove the if statement. Since the value of the day constant isn't always greater than 31, replace it with an else that contains a switch that does the same kind of stuff we did before. Code a case label for the value of 2, so February. Code case labels for 4, 6, and 9. All right. And have it all fall through to 11 so they can all share the same. Make a default case and then run the app again. Okay, so let's go and do all this right now. So right now I have not yet brought that in here. In fact, let me close this. There we go. All right, I'm going to bring in my profile.js and I'm going to close this. All right. So use strict const date. Now notice what we have in here. All right, we currently have this date pattern in here, but it's not a complete date pattern. All right, so I'm going to take this line of code in here, this whole line, and for now, I'm going to comment it out. All right, and I'm going to come back in here and rewrite it like this. I'm going to say if not date pattern dot test date, like that, we will then return false. Now they put all that on one line. I just put it on multiple lines. All right. So what do we have in here? Well, you can see all this index stuff that we have. And then we've got it where we're checking our days and our months, etc. All right. So let's grab all of this stuff for now and let's comment this out. All right. And I want to do what we did before. What do I mean? In fact, let's just remove this. Okay. So I want to come in here and I want to split this like we did before. So I'm going to say const date parts, just like we did before, equal date dot split. And I want to split it based on the dash, exactly like we did it before. And then months is going to be equal to parse int date parts 0 and const day is going to be equal to parse int. And it's not data parts that I put there, it's date parts. Come on. And that is going to be date parts 1. Okay. All right. There's a start. We're not, of course, we're not done yet. All right, but we do have the day and the month. Now, if the month is less than 1 or the month is greater than 12, we can return false. We're done. We put in an invalid month. Okay, that makes sense. But this thing can now be removed. This if here, return false, otherwise return true. We can get rid of all this. That was expecting that every month had 31 days. Okay, so what we want to do is here, we want to tag an else in here. All right, and now I'm going to do a switch on the month. Now we can do this any way we want to do it. We can do this any way we want to do it. Let's do the hard one first. So let's do February. All right. And we're going to put in here the author, when I went back and looked at his, put a real simple check in that just said, if day is greater than 28, they didn't check for leap years. All right. They just said if day is greater than 28, return false. Okay. And break. So that should now handle February. Otherwise, case 4, case 6, case 9, and case 11. You already know this, but I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put a comment in here that says February. February. Put another comment in here and I'm going to copy this comment over. This is April, our current month. That's June. That will be, whoops, that will be September. And finally, that will be November. But we can have a fall through because these are all the same. all right? And have this say, now, if it's any one of these, if the day is greater than 30, again, we can return false and break. Now, rather than checking my other months, I can just come in here and put in a default case and just say, if the day is greater than 31, return false and break. All right. And then finally, so this is going to end our switch, but right before we end this, we can just return true. And I believe that's everything. This is all other stuff that the author has written. Good stuff in here. They're going over patterns and the like. But let's look at this now. All right. So all that I'm just throwing in there. But let's come in here and let's put in the current month, the 31st, which is invalid. We're not getting an error. Telling us I have 3 errors. Date pattern is not defined. And that's true. I don't think I've got a date pattern in here. Unless date pattern. Oh, let's look. It says it's not defined in line 4. All right, well, that's giving me all my errors. But I thought that it was defined, not by me. So date pattern right there. All right, we've got, oh, we didn't set up any patterns. Okay, let's set up our patterns. That's good. Const email pattern equal, and we'll just right now set that like this. Const phone pattern, because the email is pretty ugly. And that's equal to, you already know this, you should know these. All right, but that's fine. We'll set this one up, and this will be slash starts with, all right, \D, 3 digits, followed by a hyphen, followed by 3 digits, followed by a hyphen, followed by 4 digits. And the pattern, bam, there's the phone pattern. So 3 digits, a hyphen, 3 digits, a hyphen, 4 digits. That's the way the phone should be put in. Our zip, pretty simple. Again, start that, and it will be 5 digits. And we can put in there a dash. We put this in parens. So after the 5 digits, meaning that this is not mandatory, a dash and 4 digits. Like that. Then we end our pattern. So that's our zip code pattern. Now we put in a little complex date pattern in here. All right. Again, what this says is the first digits, first thing that we put in here, okay, will be 01, 01. All right, which means either, and this is optional, but we can start our date with a 0 or with a 1. Okay. slash D. Some of the stuff gets really ugly. Slash forward slash 3 slash D slash dash slash D4. All right, and there's the date pattern. Hopefully I didn't screw that up. Okay, now let's put in the email pattern, then I'm going to take a break. This is kind of ugly again. I'm taking this is from the Murach book, which I don't have available to me right now, so. Assign. All right, I think that's everything. We'll see. So again, if I come in here, fill in all that stuff. All right, let's put in something illegal. So we'll put in 02/29/2023. Okay, I'm getting nothing. It says date pattern is not defined. I did define it. It's right there. There's date pattern. And there it's spelled the same. Which says probably I'm missing a curly brace or something in here. At least I could be. Doesn't look like it though. All right, I'm going to take a quick break and I'll come back in 7 minutes at 1:15 and see if I can finish this thing up. I'll tell you what, I was going to take a break. I just downed the rest of my water, but that's fine. I noticed in here that when I was calling is date, I wasn't passing this in. That could be what my problem was. So let me take a quick look. All right. So nothing, I get everything. Let's put in just the valid email, see if we can start removing this stuff one thing at a time. That's okay. Phone number. Okay, so that's okay. Well, you can already see that that's all right. Let's do this with a dash. Okay, so that's an invalid zip code. So is that, but that should now be valid. Okay, let's put a dash in here, another number. Okay, so our phone number, that's all working. All right, let's try putting in an invalid email. So hello. All right, please enter a valid email. So how about hello@goodbye.com? That's valid. Our phone number, it'll only accept number, hyphen number, hyphen number. So let's try an illegal format. And it should not accept this, and it doesn't. But if I change this to the format it wants, which is that one, then it accepts it. All right, with a zip code, if I put in 4 digits, unacceptable, 5 digits is acceptable, 5 digits with a dash, not acceptable, a dash and 1 number, not acceptable, 2 numbers, not acceptable, 3 numbers, not acceptable, 4 numbers, acceptable, 5 numbers, not acceptable. Good, all that is working. Now let's try to put in a valid date. So we will, but let's put an invalid date in. So let's use the month we're in, 4/31/2023, because there is only 30 days in this month. So now it took it. So something is not right in there. All right, so let's put in this 4/0/2023. And it actually is taking that as well. Let's see if we get any errors here. Cannot read properties of undefined reading tests in line 4. All right, so there's something in here that it is not liking, and it's right there. So we've got our const is date. We're passing in the date. We're passing in the pattern. And if that date pattern that we're testing on the date, if it fails, we should be returning false. All right, again, it doesn't like this right now, but that code is correct. Then we're splitting the date as we did before. All right. And then we're checking if we put an invalid month in, we're just returning false. All right. Otherwise, and I would think that this would be wrong, but I want to try something here. Again, something looks hosed right there, but I'm not sure what it is. We'll see if we can find that out in a moment. So let me do a file save here, go back to here, do another file save. All right. Yeah, we've got all the stuff we need. We should. And let me run this. If we put in valid data, does it take valid data? So in other words, today is 4/18/2023. We're not getting anything. Do we still get an error in here? It doesn't like this. Cannot read properties of undefined reading test. So our test is not working right now. Is date, if not date pattern dot test. Undate. That is correct. Turn false. Let's look at our document already here. Gonna have this is valid flags. Let's just comment that out. Email, val, phone, val, zip, val, date of birth, val. Let's take a look at our date pattern and see if we screwed that up. It's actually correct. Let me keep that as valid in here. So let's see. These are all being grayed out too, which isn't a good sign. So maybe I'm missing something here. All right, we're replacing this. So let me get rid of this. This should now say email pattern, because we added the pattern dot test of email. All right, if that's the case, is valid as false. And you say, please enter a valid email. Okay. Then for the phone, same kind of thing. So this is now phone pattern dot test of phone. Okay. And then the zip code is now zip pattern dot test of zip. And finally, our date of birth that's in here is date of birth, and we have to pass in the date pattern. That's probably why it was failing. All right, so let's look. Go back to here. Okay. That's valid. This should now, with a dash here and there. Okay, that worked. Now the zip code it doesn't like, so there's something in here that either in the pattern or in our test that we put in that is incorrect. So let's look at both. So here's our zip pattern, 5 digits. No, that's actually correct. Let's see if it's trying to only work if we have the 4 digits in here at the end. So yeah, it is looking now for the 4 digits. Date of birth, now let's try it. 4/31/2023 says that it's invalid. If we put in 4/30, it is valid. So let me quickly go over this, boom, and then I'm going to do 15 and 16. All right. So taking this from the top, we changed this line here at the beginning. We changed this from what the author gave us to this. All right. This is the is date. So what we're doing first is we're saying that if the date pattern doesn't match, just return false. All right. Then we are splitting the date as we did before. And now we're saying simply, after you split it, month, which is what comes before the first slash, if it's less than 1 or it's greater than 12, and remember, if we put something non-numeric in there, it would have a value of 0, which is less than 1. So if that's the case, return false. Otherwise, we're doing a switch on the month, and we are making this crisper. I don't know what you'd call it, but I wanted to see one thing. This is checking, and it only says if the day is greater than 28. So let's go in and do 2 things. First, all right, I will put in the dash. All right, for this right here, let's put in 2, 0, 2023 and see if it takes that. It says please enter it must be a valid date. All right, that's good. So let's try. This is not a leap year, but next year is a leap year. That check does not appear then to be working. What if we put in 28 just to be sure here? All right, so that check for leap year right now is not working. So all we're checking for, oh, we're not doing a leap year check. That's why. Okay. So if the day is greater than 28, we could come in and write some code to do that. But this has really been, I don't know what you'd say, hammered down or made easier. All right. So we're just saying got to be between 1 and 28 days for February, has to be between 1 and 30 days for April, June, September, and November, and it must be between 1 and 31 days for the other 7 months: January, March, May, July, August, October, and December. In our document.ready, you'll have to go in and add patterns as they're shown there in lines 60, 61, 62, and 63. Then, rather than testing those directly in here, which is what they have here and here and here, and the one that's down here as well, down here, you have to change those. So we're doing the test for this one with that email pattern that's up here, with this one, with the phone pattern that's up here, with this one that's got the zip pattern that's up there, and that we are calling our isDate function, and you must add and pass along the date pattern with it. So this is kind of a sloppier program that the authors have written. All right. So far from what we've looked at, I want you to do 12.1 on the short and 12.1 and 13.1 on the extra. Now, we're not going to look at any more code today. All right. But I will look for tomorrow. We will look at some of these and we will look at some of these, not all of them. All right. But this is what you're going to be assigned so far, is going to be 12.1 on the short. That's the countdown date validator. From the extras, the develop a change calculator and the use a switch statement to validate a date. All right, so with that, I'm going to jump into the book. All right, so I'm going to jump in here. Let me close a few of these things that are open that I don't need. All right, so today we're going to talk about chapter 15 and chapter 16. And of course, this thing times out after a while, so. All right, so here, this will be chapter 15. So as it says, chapter 3 introduced arrays. This chapter has even more skills for working with arrays. This is not a complete chapter, just so you know, but it's an extensive chapter, but there's more things with arrays that are not listed in here. All right. So first we'll talk about how to create and use an array. All right. And I think we're only going to go through 15 today. I think 16, our next one, is on object oriented. Yeah, we won't even do that one today. So let me go back. We're just going to work with arrays today. Okay. So we'll talk about how to create and use an array, different array methods, this test scores application, some additional skills for working with arrays, the task list, which I think will use arrays, and then a very important concept at the end of the chapter, and that is working with sets and working with maps. All right. Now, you do know how to create an array already. There's nothing new here. There's two basic ways. Well, they give you three. I've never used this array of, but most of the time you'll create an array either like this, or you'll do it like this. In fact, the one that's used almost exclusively is the array literal. It's not that you have to do it that way, but it's a natural way, and it typically involves the least amount of keystrokes. Now, if you make the array const, like they say right here, you can, C-A-N, you can change the contents of the array. You can do that, all right? But you cannot change the size of the array. If you make the array and create it with a let instead of a const, not only can you change the contents of the array, you can change the size of the array as well. All right. And they show you some ways that you can create stuff and assign stuff in here, etc. This is all stuff we've gone over before. Remember, arrays contain elements. The length of the array is the number of elements that are in the array. All right. If you create an array without specifying its length, the array is empty. It has no elements in it. All right. When you create an array and you assign only some of the elements, the rest are set to undefined. The first array element is element 0 or index 0 or sub 0 or subscript 0. The next one would be 1, 2, 3, etc. As far as adding and deleting array elements, there are different ways that you can do this. All right. Some of the ways that you can do these things are mentioned in this chapter. Some of the ways that you can do things in here are not mentioned in this chapter. All right. I want to say that again. Some of the things in here are mentioned in this chapter. Some of them are not mentioned in this chapter. All right. I'll try to find a good resource that has a lot of the array methods that aren't mentioned in this chapter and provide that for you for tomorrow. Okay. All right. You can add an element to the end of the array by using the length property. All right. If you add an element at an index that's not in sequence, okay, it'll add it between the new element and the end of the original array. Okay. When you use the delete element to delete an array, it deletes the element's value, but it keeps the element in the array, but it now has a value of undefined. These aren't things that you're going to use a lot. All right. What do I mean? Well, there are some methods that you can use before we go into these. All right. I'm going to type in here JavaScript array methods. All right. And probably it'll give me W3 schools, I would think, near the top, but maybe I'm wrong. All right. JavaScript array methods. All right. So here are some of them. So they go through a bunch, but this is what I wanted to show you. First of all, popping and pushing. Okay. Pop means that you remove something from an array. Push means you add something into an array. When you pop, you remove the last array element. So in the example that's right here, all right, it says the pop method returns the value that was popped out. So fruits.pop, the last value in the array is mango. All right, so let's look at what they have here. All right, we run this. And as you can see, we've got this stuff right here. All right, so it says the pop returns the value that was popped out. Okay, then what they're telling us to do is they're telling us to grab fruits.pop and fruits. Well, fruits.pop is the last element, so it's mango. Since you've removed the last element, the array now contains not banana, orange, apple, and mango anymore. It's just banana, orange, and apple. All right. Now, if you change this, I'm going to change this to pushed in. All right, we'll see if we can make this work. All right, so let's see the pop method. So I'm going to say here, there they've got pop, but we're going to say push, and I'm going to put a new value in here, and I'm going to say cranberry. Okay. And I'm going to say the push method adds a new value to the end of the array. Okay. Now let's see if I did it right, screwed it up. I don't know. But we don't want to say fruits.pop. We want to say fruits.push. Run it. Now notice it says the push method enters something new. All right, we've got all that. Fruits.push. It's not showing us anything, it's showing us 4. And fruit still has banana, apple. Well, let's look at their example. I shouldn't try to run stuff myself. So here's a push. All right. So we've got this stuff in there. And then we say fruits.push, and they're adding a new element. So there were 4 elements, banana, orange, apple, and mango. We push a new one on, which is kiwi. So we now have 5 elements, and it's at the end. Bottom line is this. When you use pop, you remove the last array element. When you use push, you add a new last array element. What if you want to go in the other direction? Then you use shift, S-H-I-F-T, and unshift. All right, shift removes the first element. So if we use shift here, it should remove banana. And you'll notice, indeed, it does. All right. If we use unshift, it adds a new element to the beginning of the array. So when we do this, the array should now be lemon, banana, orange, apple, mango. And let's see if that's the case. And you can see again that it is. These push and pop are things that you may have reason to use quite a bit. I don't use the delete that they mentioned in the book, but there are other ones too. All right, there's the array length. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be in here. I would strongly recommend that you take a look at it. All right, I'm going to try to find for tomorrow a program that I wrote on this stuff that you'd actually be able to use. All right, so here are a bunch of different ways that you can loop through arrays. There is a regular for loop. There is a for in loop. There is a for of loop. All right. So let's take a look at some of the examples that are in here. Okay. They all work the same way, but when you use the for in and when you use the for of, it's brevity that you save. It's a little less typing. For years, all you could do is this. So you have your index, you'd start at index 0, you'd go till 1 less than the array length. So if I had an array with 10 elements, it would go from 0 to 9 and then do everything. Nothing new there. You'll notice with a for in, all right, you've got const I in names. Well, what the heck is that? All right, well, first of all, names is an existing array. All right, I is it's a loop control variable that you're defining on the fly. All right, so it'll automatically loop all the way through, but you don't have to put the plus plus in there like we had done before. You don't have to make a check like we did before. All right, so that's with for in, and there's a for of that works pretty much the same way as well. So as they mention here, you can use a for in, or a for of. With the for in or the for of, you can use a constant or a variable to refer to the array element index or value. With a for statement, it must be a variable. It can't be a constant. The for in loop does not process undefined elements, so it skips them. The for loop and the for of do process them. Okay. Now, this is another new thing. This is something you're going to work with in the AWD1111 class. It's called destructuring an array. All right. And it says, so far this chapter has shown you how to use indexes to assign the individual elements in an array to constants and variable. JavaScript allows you to assign multiple array elements to multiple constants or multiple variables in one statement without using indexes. So if we look right here at these examples, if we look at example 1 that's here, all right, we are destructuring the array. The array was an array with 4 values in it. Now we are grabbing 3 of those values and putting what was in array element 0 into total 1, putting in what was in array element 1 into total 2, and putting what was in array element 2 into total 3. So we are skipping, in that case, the 4th element, 135, 75, totally fine. But this is destructuring. So rather than treating, this as one unit, we're now treating it as individual units. A natural question then is, why would you want to do that? I mean, what is the value of doing that? What are we getting out of doing that? All right. And the answer to that question is, well, you are now able to work with each value individually as opposed to having to work with them collectively. All right. So as mentioned here, you can assign the elements in an array to individual constants or variables by coding the const or the let keyword. That's destructuring. You can also skip elements if you want to. All right. You can also, there's a shortcut by using the rest operator, which is the 3 dots, to assign the elements, the rest of the elements in one array to another array. Kind of a neat thing that you can do here. All right. So it's got here total 1 and total 2, and this says ... remaining totals. All right. It's a shortcut. You will talk about the rest operator. All right. You will talk about the rest operator next semester in the AWD1111 class. All right. Some array methods that allow you to add elements to an array, modify existing array elements, remove array elements, and copy array elements. Well, here's some of the ones I already mentioned to you. Push and pop, unshift and shift. All right. You can also use, and it's a little confusing, splice and slice. All right. And I want you to see one thing, and that is when you use slice, it returns a new array. That's the only one that does. Really push and pop, unshift, shift, splice with a start and a number, and splice with a start and a number and an element list. Those are designed to work with an array, but do things with an array. Slice is designed to actually give you a brand new array. These won't make a lot of sense until you actually look at them in action. All right. So rather than giving you something for chapter 15, which I'm not going to do, or I'm not planning on it right now, well, we'll see at the end of the chapter. I'm going to give you a couple programs that I have written. All right. They're not going to be GUI. They're going to be very ugly to look at, but it'll show you some of the stuff that you can do with arrays. We'll look at those tomorrow. All right, methods that inspect an array or its elements. Okay, I'm not going to read any of these to you. But just like when you work with a string and you want to see if a string includes a substring, there are similar methods for an array where you can look through the array and see if the array holds different elements, different values. With most of these, it'll return, if they're Booleans, and a lot of these are Booleans, or some of them are, it'll return true if it finds something, false if it doesn't. Now, with things like indexes, typically, if it finds something, it'll return the first one it finds, and if it doesn't find anything, it'll return -1. Many of these things work like this. Again, I'm just giving you my opinion for whatever it is or isn't worth. This chapter of the book is going to be amongst the most important chapters for you in the AWD 1111 class. So I would not get rid of the book. Okay. All right. And there are examples of each one of these. Again, I'm going to give you an article that I have someplace that's going to go through many of these array methods. Okay. There's transform, some neat stuff that you can do in here. All right. There's join, which basically will allow you to kind of concatenate things together, join them together based on a separator. There's a toString. There's a sort, which will automatically sort things into ascending order. When you run sort and then you run reverse, it'll put things into a descending order. All right. You can use sort without reverse, so there's ways of using it. Probably this routine right here, this map that you see, may be one of the most, if not the most important thing that you will learn as far as your JavaScript array stuff to work with next semester. Notice what it does. It executes a function that returns all the elements reduced to one value. I'm sorry, I'm reading the reduce. It executes a function once for each element and returns an array that contains the results of each function call with map. Now, why is that important? What if, I'm going to give you an example right now. What if I wrote a test? Everybody took the test. And what I decided later was that people didn't do very well on the test, but part of it was my fault. So what I wanted to do was anybody who took the test on the day it was scheduled, I wanted to give them an automatic 10% added to their grade. Well, when I use map, it's kind of like using a loop. It'll go through then, and if I've got 100 students, it'll add 10% to the grade of each one of those 100 students. All right. And I don't know if there's even an example in here, but we will look at some. All right, so next is this test scores application. As you can see, as it says, the next two figures present another version of the test scores app that was first shown in chapter 3. So it looks like this. Now look at what's new. It should show all of the scores in that line that says all scores. If I've got 100 scores, they would all be here. It would eventually wrap and be on several lines, but then it would add up all 100 of those and divide by 100 and give me this. But we're also keeping track of the last 3 scores that are in here. So what that means is if I come in here and I put in 71, all right, I think that it's going this way. So it's going to put comma 71 there. It's going to get rid of the 97. So the last 3 scores will be 82, 89, and whatever I said in here, 71 or whatever it was. So the HTML isn't hard. The JavaScript really and truly isn't hard either, but you have to look at it and it has to make some sense. So again, they're writing this as jQuery. They've got an array of scores. It's an empty array. When you click the add score button here, you want to make sure that it's numeric. You want to make sure that it's not negative. It's not greater than 100. And if that's the case, we want to add that. All right, we want to add that score. So how are we doing that? We're pushing it to the array. All right. We're doing a join in here, which is going through and it's grabbing all the scores and putting a comma and a blank space in between each score. Then we're calculating the average. All right. This reduce is kind of cool. Basically, what it's going to do is it's going to tell it to start at 0 and then go through, and every time we get a new value, add it to the total. Then when we're all done with that, take that total and divide it by how many tests we took. All right, and then we've got the display the last 3 scores in here. So we're telling it we're using slice, and we're creating, with slice, remember, we're creating a new array that just has the last 3 scores in. Kind of neat, really. All right. Couple more things that they have in here. First, as you can see, more skills for working with arrays. So how to split a string into an array. All right. So when we do this full name and we run split on it, it's actually going to create an array with 3 elements in there. It'll be a string array. The first string will be Grace. The second string will be M. The third string will be Hopper. How do I know that? Because we told it to split on the blank space. So here, and the blank space that's here. All right. So it'll display 3 as the length, 1, 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2. And if we tell it to give the parts and put them in a string, it'll display it like this, and it'll automatically add the commas for us. And again, you might say a natural thing to say here is that's fine, Jeff, but why would you even want to do this? And the answer is sometimes there are different methods that you can run on a string that you can't run on an array. So if you take your array and you break it up, all right, into strings, or going the other way like they've done it here, they're taking a string and they're breaking it into an array, or not breaking it. Yeah, really, they are. They're breaking a single string into an array with 3 elements. Now, these different things that we've been looking, you're able to use any of those array methods on it now. All right. How to make a copy of an array. This has changed over the years. It used to be that to make a copy of an array, what you had to do to make a copy of an array, what you had to do was you had to put it into a loop and copy over from one element to another. All right. You cannot do this. If you do this right there, then both new array and existing array point to the same part of memory. So in other words, you're making an alias right there. But there are different ways that you can make an array, and they show you 4 of them right here. First, you can call the slice method. Remember, slice creates a new array. And if you don't put any parameters in there, it copies everything from names and puts it into names copy. Second, you can pass the array to the static from method, and they explain the from method on the top of the page here, and you can see an example of it right here. Third, you can destructure the array with the rest operator. And finally, you can use an array literal with the spread operator. All right, so as they mentioned here, JavaScript gives you a bunch of different ways to make a copy of an existing array. Slice, as it says, has been around forever, so it'll work with older browsers. The from doesn't work with older browsers. The spread and the rest, again, weren't introduced until ECMAScript 15, so they may or may not work with older browsers. All right, next is an associative array. This is kind of neat because what it's saying is, by default, when you create an array, the elements are all numbers. but you may not want that. All right. So what you can do instead is you can, instead of making them numbers, you can have the subscripts be strings. All right. And I've given this kind of an example before, just to show you real quick here. All right. That if I did this, if I said, let's see, let Midwest states equal, and I'm going to make an array, and I'm going to say Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, and we'll just put in one more, Minnesota. Okay, that's totally legit. Nothing wrong with doing that. But that's the same thing as if I had said Midwest states, put this in here 4 times. So that is the same thing as if I'd said 0, 1, 2, 3, and then this would have been Missouri, then this would have been Illinois, then this would have been Wisconsin, and finally this would have been Minnesota. And that's totally fine to do it this way. Or we could have made it empty. Like that, and then added them one at a time. Or if we wanted to use an associative array, we could come in and do something like this. All right, I'm going to change these. So this is going to become MO. This is going to become IL. This is going to become WI. And this is going to become MN. So sometimes it makes a lot more sense that rather than using numbers as your subscripts or your indices for the array, you use strings. When you do it this way, that's what's known as an associative array. Now they give a different example here, but it is working the same way. All right. So as it says, when you create an associative array, you use strings as the indexes instead of numbers. All right. If you mix numbers and strings, it says the length will indicate only the number of elements with numbers. All right. So you lose a little, you gain a little by doing it. You lose a little because it might be harder to work with it if you decide, I don't know why you would mix numbers and strings. But the advantage is what I showed you, that if by having strings in there instead of numbers, it can make your code easier to read. All right. You can have an array of arrays. What does that mean? Technically, all right, JavaScript does not support a multi-dimensional array. All right, but you can have an array whose elements are arrays. When people tell me I don't get this, it doesn't make any sense, I always ask, have you ever used Excel? Oh yeah, I've used Excel. You've used an array. So if I go right here and just grab all these right here, what is this? This is G7, G8, G9, G10, etc. And then H7, H9, H10, etc. All right, the way that this would change is if this was an array, then this would be, if we had this, let me make this a different color. Whoops. See if I can make that a different color. Oh, that's going to make, I want my background to be a different color. Okay, there we go. So if I come in here, then this is now 0, 0. This is 0, 1. This is 0, 2. And this is 0, 3. We'll just make 2 of these. I'm going to get rid of the rest of this. So let me get rid of the coloring. All right. And this then will be, in fact, let's just copy these. All right. All right. I don't know how I goofed that up, but I did. And I'm going to get rid of all this. So let me get rid of that. And we'll make that no background either. All right. So why did I do this? I want to show you when you look right here that when you are working with a multi-dimensional array. So what is this? This is an array with 1, 2 rows, row 0 and row 1. And it also has 4 columns, column 0, column 1, column 2, and column 3. All right. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 elements in this array, but it is totally legit to create an array where the members of the array are other things. Why would you do this? Notice what they have in here. They have a student array. All right. And there are 4 students. Each student has taken a number of tests. So maybe student 0 has taken 5 tests. Student 1 has taken 3 tests. Students 2 and 3 have taken 4 tests. So that's totally legit to do that. So it's an array whose elements are an array. Notice that when you do that and you want to work with them, so if I said 0, 1, well, that is student 0, and there's value 0, there's value 1. So 0, 1 should be 82. Then I've got 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. So that should be 100. So there's a lot of ways that you can use this. Now, typically, you don't find arrays that have more than that are more have more dimensions than 3. All right. And it's not that it's impossible. You can have an array of 20 dimensions if you want to. It would probably be so hard because it's virtually impossible to conceptualize something beyond 3D. So very rare that you see anything like that. All right. Okay. Next, how to convert an array to JSON and back. You will work a lot in JSON in the AWD1111 class. JSON is JavaScript Object Notation. The neat thing about JSON is that you can use JSON to, if you take your data and you convert it into JSON, you can use it and pass it between different programming languages and a lot of different things. All right. Now, there's 2 main methods here when you work with JSON. You can use stringify and you can use parse. When you use stringify, notice what it says. It returns a JSON string for the object or the array. So it takes everything and virtually concatenates it together so that it's into one entity. And remember, JavaScript Object Notation, or JSON, you can use between different programming languages. Most every programming language recognizes JSON. Parse goes the other way. All right, it returns the original object or the array from the JSON string. So stringify takes everything and puts it into a JSON string, kind of implodes it, combines it all together. Parse kind of explodes it and puts it back to the way it was originally. So as they mentioned here, JSON is a format that uses text to store and transmit data for objects like arrays and any other kind of object. JSON was originally based on the notation for objects, as it says there, that was used by JavaScript. Parse method to convert a string back into objects. Yeah, you may need to do some extra work on it. When you use stringify, just remember they're opposites of one another for lack of better verbiage. All right, then they come back and they rewrite this task list application again. This version uses an array of arrays for the list, and it stores the task list in a JSON string in local web storage. Doesn't look really any different to look at it. The only thing in here that is different per se is now there's a due date on it. Okay. So for the JavaScript, what you'll see in here when you look through it is it does a little bit more work than it did before. Now, I don't want to get into it any more depth and breadth of coverage than that. All right. I'm still trying to wrap my head around giving you an example that we can go through next week that will show you some of this stuff that I want to show you. All right. And will still not overwhelm you too much, but it'll teach you some stuff that will help you next semester. All right. Okay, the last topic that's discussed in this program are working with sets and maps. All right. It says that ECMAScript 2015 added 2 more data types that you can work with collections of data, the set and the map. So the first one they discuss here is a set. And as it says, a set, okay, it contains elements like an array. The difference, though, between a quote regular array and a set is every value in a set must be unique. Let me say that again. Every value in a set must be unique. All right. So they'll show you an example here of working with a set. So you can say equal new set, okay? And what you can do with sets then is these are the main properties and methods that you work with. The main property is the size property. The main methods are going to be add and delete. But there's also a couple of other methods because this stuff is, again, basically saved as what's referred to as a key value pair. So you can grab the key and you can grab the, right? So as they mention here, a set can store 0 or more elements and each element must be unique. To create a set, you use the set constructor. The set has less functionality than the array, but you can convert a set into an array. All right, finally, we've got a map. And as it says, unlike the elements of a set where each value must be unique, the elements of a map are pairs of keys and values where the key must be unique, but not the value. All right. So kind of think of it this way, and this isn't a great example, but it's the one that just popped into my head. That if I had a list of scores and I wanted to make them into a set, if 2 people had the same score, all right, it would be harder to tell in a set because you can't replicate a value. But if I was using a map where I had for the key the person's name and for the value their test score, I could have as much duplication as necessary. However, if I had 2 Johns in the class, I couldn't have John with one score and John with another score. I have to find some way of differentiating them, John 1 and John 2, or John Jon and John John, or whatever. So next they show you some of the skills that you would use if you were working with a map. Very similar to what we were working with in a set. All right, as far as the different methods, etc., that are available to you. But again, as it says, the map stores one or more elements in a key value pair. Each key must be unique. I think that's just about it for the chapter here. Here it is. All right. So what I'm going to do tomorrow, which is Wednesday, all right, is I don't want to do anything with this task list application. But one thing I do want to do tomorrow is I want to go through chapter 16. That'll get us through this section of the book. All right. But looking here, I've already mentioned to you that so far I'm going to want you, let me get rid of this. I don't need that anymore. I'm going to want you to do short 12-1, extra 12-1, and extra 13-1. I've done those in front of you already. All right. Tomorrow I would like to go through, maybe we'll just, I'm just going to cut this down, but maybe we'll do 14-1 here from short, where we view the query string, and maybe we'll just do 14-2 from here, where we navigate and do the session storage. All right, let's look and see what's in here. So this is navigating using a cookie, but we'll do this one. I think it's more work, but we'll do that one anyway. Navigate between pages and use session storage. So we'll probably look at 14-2. That'd be my guess tomorrow. And then in here, did that 13-1. And we'll do this, view the query string of a URL, probably 14-1 on this one and 14-2 on this one. That would be my guess. Okay. And then if there's time, again, I don't want to do anything with this task list. I just don't like the application. So we won't do anything from there. And let's see on this one. And there's nothing wrong with the application that's here, but I think what we'll do instead is, if there's time, we'll do 15-1, but otherwise I'll give you a couple applications that I have done using arrays. All right. And you won't have to key them in or anything. I'll just give them to you. I'll give you the code and we'll go over that. I think we might get more out of that tomorrow, but we'll see. All right. So I'm done. It's 10 o'clock. All right. And I think that's it for today. I had no one attend today's lecture, which is totally fine. But I think I'm going to stop right there because I don't really want to go into 16 because there may be questions on that. And I have no one to ask me questions. So we'll just stop it right there. I'll talk to you tomorrow.